Behind the Badge, Illinois, giving you the inside scoop on public safety and those who protect and serve. Hear real stories directly from law enforcement experts and get a chance to ask questions about issues you've always wanted to know more about. You have the right to remain informed. This is Behind the Badge, Illinois.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is another edition of Behind the Badge, Illinois, and today we are very fortunate to have a state's attorney representative with us to talk about all things state's attorney. We've got Rick Amato from DeKalb County. Good morning, state's attorney.
Good morning, everybody.
Really grateful to have you here today. And then we've got a couple of our regulars. We've got Chief Dave Bird from the DeKalb Police Department. No coincidence there.
All right, good morning.
And we've got Chief Kirk Brueggemann from O'Fallon PD.
Good morning.
All right, so today we thought it'd be really important and interesting for our listeners and viewers to get a deeper appreciation and understanding of how the state's attorney role plays into the overall criminal justice system here in Illinois. You know, when you watch TV, you can see in different parts of the country, it is a little bit different. You hear of a district attorney, or you just hear of different roles or titles or the way things are done. It's an incredibly important part of the criminal justice system. We work closely with our state's attorneys. I mean, they're integral partners in law enforcement and public safety. And so, again, we thought it'd be really, really important for people to kind of understand what it is they do, the process. I think most people we've talked here on the show have a pretty good appreciation of what the police role is and how we bring charges and what we do to keep people safe and what we do when we make an arrest. But we thought, you know, hey, let's talk about what that looks like after we're done with our part of it. And we've got a really, really good person here to talk about that, and Rick Amato. He's been doing this for a while. I'll let him talk about his background and credentials, but he's got a great deal of experience in this area and in this role. And we thought he'd be a phenomenal addition to the conversation. So again, good morning, Rick. And, you know, for the casual viewer and the people that are out there today, why don't we just start a little bit with, you know, who you are, how long you've been doing it, what you're doing, and, you know, in general as a state's attorney. Just take us through kind of just to do a little soft introduction to that.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chief. Good morning, Chiefs. Thank you for having me. Actually, a real honor for you guys to ask me to be part of this. So my name is Rick Amato. I'm the DeKalb County State's Attorney. I'm finishing my 8th year in office. So this is the end of my 2nd term. I've been an attorney over 21 years at this point, and I've been on both sides of the prosecution. So I started my career back as an attorney in 2003 as an assistant state's attorney here in this office. I'm originally from the suburbs. I'm a West suburban guy from Addison, Illinois. Made my way out here, and then I met a girl from out here. So I've been out here ever since 2003. I got married in 2005 to my wife, Renee. We have 3 kids, and split a lot of duties now between state's attorney and football coaching and basketball coaching, and filling that in with life. So came out in 2003 as an assistant state's attorney, loved the experience. I got into private practice after that and practiced in criminal defense a lot throughout this area up to Rockford. I was hubbed in an office in St. Charles too. So we did everything Collier County wise and branch courts of Cook County, and then coming out west. I took office here in 2016, and it's been it's been a great privilege to be part of this. It's really the law enforcement team, as well as the service to the community, that really makes this office a challenge every day, but a challenge worth taking on. So I decided last year, I announced I was not seeking a 3rd term, reference young family, and being on both sides of the prosecution, be going back into private practice at the conclusion of this term and seeking some new challenges outside of the office.
Okay, so you've been doing it for a while, and this is interesting. I know the other gentlemen have some questions, but I definitely want to follow up on one that you just mentioned, and I think it's quite interesting, and I think it happens a lot in your profession from my experience, working both sides of that equation. I don't know if a lot of people really think that. You know, I think with law enforcement, we certainly get into it, and we are on that side our entire career. That is the job we do. but I think it's fairly common, and you could speak to it certainly, and why it may be a benefit too to the work you do. But to have state's attorneys who have worked as criminal defense attorneys as well, and having had that opportunity to present cases from both sides and to understand clearly, and again, I'll let you speak to it, but from my perspective, I think it gives you a really good understanding and appreciation of the victim side of things, but also of the offender side of things, and how, what's going on in the background, or with those folks. So, I mean, very interesting concept, but if you don't mind, take us through that a little bit.
Sure. And most people don't do what I'm doing, which is leave office and not run now. I know it's actually became common in this election cycle. The McHenry County State's Attorney is not rerunning. Obviously, Cook County State's Attorney didn't choose a rerun. So that's becoming more, and that may be a product of other things. But being on both sides of the law, it's harder to be the prosecutor for sure. You carry with your cases the highest burden in the legal system, proof beyond reasonable doubt. So that is something to never undervalue and never underappreciate what you have to do to prove guilt. And it should be hard. It should be hard if you're taking somebody's life or liberty from them. It needs to be hard. And so being able to appreciate the difficulty of getting proof beyond reasonable doubt is something you need to keep on both sides of it. Being a defense attorney as well as being a prosecutor, you really hone in on the justice part of it. So seeking justice is really what the state's attorney does. The job of the state's attorney is to seek justice, not convictions at all costs, not win at all costs. It is justice. And that looks different in each and every case. In fact, I don't keep a win-loss record. I tell my people I don't want to hear about a win-loss record, because what's a win? And again, it's the justice bell that needs to be rung more than any type of, well, I got this sentence. What's right for each case needs to be determined on that case. And you can't prejudge that. You can't guess that. You got to really work the case and understand both sides of it, both from what the victim has lost or society has lost, what this particular defendant is about, and then you go from there. And I don't know how other offices speak. There's 102 of us across the state, 102 state's attorneys, one for each county. And I think each office is a little bit different depending on the size. I think there's more counties like DeKalb out there for sure, as opposed to the big counties. There's more counties around the size of 100,000, 70,000, 50,000 throughout the state than over 3 million, as we see in the statute books. So it's a little bit different each place, but you're really honing in on that justice and what works for the people. And that's not a win. That's not a loss. That is each case. And you really could attain that in pretty much every single case if you calibrate it right. And that's been the challenge of it. But that's the part that, you get excited to come here, sit in this office and work with your staff every day because of that quest for justice. That keeps it fresh.
Yeah, that's really some good insight. Like I said, if we talk about on our show, people's perception of law enforcement is often driven by TV, right? And people and movies, and that's what they think. And similarly, I'm sure they've watched a number of shows with lawyers and state's attorneys, but to hear you put it that way, I'm sure a lot of people don't realize, that you're sensitive to both sides of the equation, and certainly, concern for the victims is a priority because they were victimized, but just having that view is very interesting.
And it's, we're not all Jack McCoy, and the cool lines that come up in the court, like it's not that. It's just the work behind the scenes. And truly, as I come to the close of my 8 years, that's the thing. Chief Bird working with his staff, great bunch of people, and people are starting like, hey, when are you done? And that's December 1st. There's a lot of like, hey, all right, well, we're going to miss you, that type of stuff. But what I'm going to miss most is that locker room side of it with the law enforcement. So it's really what the players always miss when they hang it up. And I'm not hanging it up on a young guy. I got a lot of law practice. I'm not retiring. Bigger challenges ahead, but it's that locker room working together to get it right. And that's, I think, people outside of law enforcement don't see that. The work that goes in, that law enforcement puts in, just in getting the evidence, we help in that process. But then once we get it all there and we're sitting around the table of what do we have a charge? What are we going to charge? What's the where's this going to go? Especially on the bigger cases, that's the part that's just, we'll miss that. We have a lot of great folks out here. I think we have a lot of great folks in law enforcement across the state that people don't realize the amount of work behind the scenes that go in to really get this right.
Yeah, and then go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to say and it's so important when that, you know, when you get that, been able to come in and have that roundup and talk about cases like that. I just want to say, Rick's that guy. Some of these real impactful cases, these important cases. I mean, he shows up at the PD. He's in the, you know, he's in the mix with it, and you're having these real conversations, and you know, there's nothing getting lost in translation and communication because he's there. I mean, actually physically there, and that makes a difference, you know, because we can look each other in the eye and have these conversations, and you know, sometimes we don't always agree, and it's okay, because we have that type of. It's not even. It's more than a partnership. I mean, it's a friendship. So we understand that. Sometimes we're not going to always agree. It's okay. Because at the end of the day, you know, we do have that friendship and that partnership that we develop, and it makes things easier for everyone involved, you know. So I just appreciate him being that type of state's attorney who's you know, boots on the ground. Hey, I'm coming over. Let's hash this out, and then let's get it done. And you know, exactly like he said. So just really important to have that relationship. I just wanted to speak on that. So.
Yeah, and I think state's attorney, you hit upon a point in law enforcement. That's probably the hardest thing for all of us when we retire. You know, the work is the work. I mean, there's some tough work and some obviously challenging work and some work, you know, that you see that haunts you. But those relationships, it is a tight group, right? In law enforcement. And again, generally just a good group of human beings who are all pulling together to keep our communities safe. And then when you do retire, that is the part that you do miss. So you try to work to keep those connections as much as possible. And I think maybe more than a lot of professions, law enforcement does stay in touch after because of those bonds that you've built, and obviously the ones you've built too. You know, so you know, we know you're moving on to some different things in your career, which are great, and we wish you the best. And certainly we appreciate all you've done for law enforcement and public safety. But you know, just hearing what Dave said, those relationships you built will be there forever. And Dave, I know you had another question.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, you know, Rick, when you can you please just describe the makeup of your office? You know, basically
Sure.
how it's made up, services you provide. I know a lot of people out there don't always get the opportunity to take that deep dive into the state's attorney's office because just not always, you know, available for you to have those type of conversations with the community. So because this is a community-based show, if you can give them an insight on what the inside of the state's attorney's office actually looks like.
Thanks, Chief.
Yep.
The state's attorney's office is the chief attorney for the county. And so there's really two hats we wear. We wear obviously the prosecution side that everybody sees. That's what's popularized, glamorized in the public, scrutinized in the public heavily. But there's also the other hat, which we are attorneys for the county. And so we provide legal representation for every office that's a county office, whether it's the county administrator, county board, clerk of the county, the tax office, the nursing home that we have in DeKalb County, the health department, highway department. We are just really no TV shows about that, analyzing contracts, modifying contracts.
It would be riveting if there was, I'm sure.
It's just so exciting stuff. So then you focus on the real stuff that everybody's interested in. That's the criminal prosecutions. And we prosecute everything here from minor moving violations to major felonies. And we do everything. There's really no local prosecutor presence here. So we do every ticket that's written, whether or not it's anything that's a state case. There's some local adjudication that our police agencies run on small-ended stuff that is separate from this office, but anything that's a petty offense through misdemeanor to felony is us. And so our office is made up of 20 people. It's me, as well as 12 attorneys, and then 7 support staff. And so it's a 20 people to manage. You know, that is a full-time job in itself because you have 20 personalities, you have 20 different experiences, and they're all assigned in different roles for the office. And that's, you know, talking about missing people is when you're with the state, you have nothing but people that they're smarter and better attorneys than me. So all I got to do is walk down the hallway or, you know, call out their name, like, hey, what do you think of this? And then we're in here and we break it down. There's a ton of collaboration that goes on amongst our attorneys. And one of the things I'm really proud of is the office staff we've put together, both sides of it, our attorneys as well as the support staff. Show me any attorney out there, I don't care what you practice, it's your secretarial staff that makes or breaks you, and we're no different. We have great support staff, and the attorneys I have, I've gotten them from all over the Northern Illinois area. We've had a great representative from Cook County. We have DePage, we have McHenry, we have Kane. We've had folks from all over here, and that really, to me, was a great melting pot. Winnebago County, we pulled down over here to use those experiences we define and do what we do. Because again, it's that quest for justice. So you take these backgrounds that are all different and you put them all together. There really is one outcome that truly is justice, and that's where you use those backgrounds. And so, 20 employees, and we do a ton of work, a ton of time. I spend 50% of my time in the civil world because I have one civil chief of civil, and we do everything. And then we have two other chiefs that do, one does chief of criminal and one does chief of programs. So programs that we have, we've put in several different lines of diversion. We put in a veterans program. We put in different programs that are diversionary that really help move our cases and get that right fit for our folks that are involved. And then we have, major crimes. So the chief of criminal is heavily involved with those. And in DeKalb, we have a wonderful mix of all types of crimes. It is as busy as anywhere. And I do think, no offense to any other law enforcement area in the county or in the state, we have a huge mix of stuff that really gets our officers fine-tuned. So I know everybody's looking for laterals and new people coming out to DeKalb. Like, we have it all, so we have major street crime. We have homicides. We have narcotics. We have shootings. We have our sex type crimes. We have our internet crimes. We have all types of stuff. And it's such a varied amount that is very, very busy. And you're going to wear lots of different hats. And that's getting people from all over. You have to have your lifetime, your earth time of being, hey, what are we looking at? You have to have that experience as a person to understand and know how to get to those right outcomes.
Yeah. That's right. 360-degree officers out here because you do it all.
State's attorney, do you prefer to be called state's attorney, your excellence, eminence? What is it that we call
Your
you?
Honor.
Well, that's part of it. I'm not seeking that third term. I realized people started just categorizing me and typecasting me. State attorney, I ceased to exist as a person, and that's fine for the 8 years. But like one more minute than that, I'm a dude. So Rick is just perfect.
All right, Rick, my question is pretty easy. Can you tell us in 3 minutes everything you know about the law?
You can't know it all. There you go. That's it. You don't know it all.
Hey, so you mentioned and I'll speak to what we have down here at our state's attorney's office. And I think one of the misconceptions is you're an attorney, and you obviously sorry, my dog is popping up in here. You're an attorney, and all of our attorneys drive BMWs, right? And they make a ton of money coming out. Is that correct?
Not true. So when I started in 2003, I was given a salary of $39,500, and that's college. I was in sales for 5 years, so I was making really good money that, you make in your 20s, it just goes away. You never have that anymore. Then I went to law school. So I came to law a little bit later, made $39,500. Wow. Fast forward to 2016, when I walked in the doors, 13 years later, the starting salary is $42,500.
Wow.
So which is shameful to everybody who came before me. I'm going to say that you got to take care of our folks because they have to make a living. They have student debt, undoubtedly. They have to have every other cost in life. Plus, these are high pressure spots. So at least, and this has been a war between us, and we're kind of, metro area, kind of in between. We're now up to, I think our starting salary would be right around 70,000 starting for the 25 year. That's something the last few years I try to push because you have to have retention, because us, just like law enforcement, we're hurting for bodies. We are 3 people short. I actually had to work out an opening, nobody available. I have a contract position with somebody who practices a whole civil practice that I brought in because she wanted to help us and do some juvenile prosecutions. But it's the money is not there. I know our friends to the east in DePage and Kane make more than our folks. And there's people probably downstate that make less than us, but it's really a quest to push up the salaries. And, I'm thankful to get these guys 70 or 75 and they go up from there, but it tops out. And even myself, I'm still driving the same car I had in private practice, which is the GMC was actually my wife's car. When we had the third kid, she went out and traded in the nice car I had and got us a minivan. So a minivan and a GMC Terrain, and it's not fancy, and it's all paid off, and we'll keep it forever. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to give our listeners some context, our state's attorneys who go to school and get a law degree, and you think they make a lot more money, but realistically, a lot of our police officers coming out of the academy are making more than the state's attorneys that are then trying these cases on the back end.
Yeah, and there's no OT for us. It is, and our folks work. I've tried a lot of different management styles, right? Read the books and how to do it. And the best thing that I could come back with is you treat it like family. You lead with love and you treat it like family. So you try to be as fair as possible. So, but our folks work 7 days a week often. If it's not 7 days a week, it's 6. They're on call. We have an on-call state's attorney 24 hours a day. And I'm always like the on-call. So like, something major happens, it's coming to me. Something smaller goes to them, and that's 24 hours a day. And it's only me, 12 attorneys plus me, and the civil guy is not in their rotation. So it takes us down to 11 to divide up the year. That's a lot that these folks are doing. And it's a 7-day, 365.
So Rick, how many cases a year are being brought forth just through your county? Roundabout, nothing, you don't have to. And do you prosecute every single one of them? Because with only 20 attorneys, that would be a challenge then to prosecute every single case that comes through and take it to trial.
And that's something. When I came in, there was 0 felony review here. It was an arrest without warrant situation, so that police would arrest them at night, and the officer would come in and try to review them, and all I saw was paper being pushed with no analysis of the case. And that's where, these guys and girls, men and women are prosecutors with a lot of experience. So we were at about 900 to 1,000 felonies for our county before I came in, with a felony review system in place for about 700. I think we see many places arrests going back to 2015, 2016 are down. And so, you take something like DUIs. This county in the early 2000s through the 08s, 09s, 10s was about 900 DUIs. We're down to about 250 DUIs. And that's been flat the last few years. Traffic stops are down. Misdemeanors are pretty flat. And that's something I looked at recently. I'm like, okay, well, we dropped out about 20% of the felonies, a little bit more. Did that just increase our misdemeanors? No, they're just gone. Just by reviewing the felonies, those cases don't get charged. The elements are there or they're not. And, and you want to look at it not just probable cause, but okay, what's the prosecution going to be like? Can you sustain? Can you get close to where it's going to be beyond reasonable doubt, which is somewhere where that tension or agree to not to disagree what happened with state's attorneys and police. But it's good, only makes for better cases. So anyone that's a felony, misdemeanor, domestic violence charge, traffic, we prosecute.
Can you, and I'm sorry for taking all the time here, but can you expound upon that probable cause versus beyond a reasonable doubt? Because I think that sometimes most people don't understand what those mean to the general public. From a law enforcement perspective, we would bring somebody in, we would make an arrest based on probable cause and then send them to you. But how do you describe that, please? Sure.
In a simple sense, probable cause is a reasonable suspicion a crime has been committed. Okay, so think 51%, it's there. Now, going back to the highest standard in the court system, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's somewhere above 51%. There's zero definition of what proof beyond a reasonable doubt is. That's something that's always debated, and it's a third rail type of argument that state's attorneys can't make. As a defense attorney, you'd be like, proof beyond a reasonable doubt is way out over there. And then, state's attorney kind of brings it down like, well, it's not any doubt. It's reasonable doubt. And this is what we have. So it really depends on the charge, depends on the case, depends on where things are going with it. But you got to be, especially on a major felony case. If all you have is probable cause and you have no chance of growing the case beyond that, you have to think of, is this the right thing to be doing to bring a charge? Because we have zero chance of sustaining our burden, which is proof beyond reasonable doubt. So that's where things go under investigation. Like, hey, we have these meetings and here's the presentation of the facts that we have so far. And depending on the law enforcement agency and their level of, do they have any detectives? We have agencies out here of 0 detectives. So like, okay, what's their ability to gain these other things? What's their knowledge? What search warrants need to be done? Is just a situation where over here would be granted? Would this just be something that, hey, just go and interview these 4 or 5 other people and see or grab these cell records, put the case together. So oftentimes when we are saying no more work, we're not saying no, we're saying, hey, you got to put this in because we're going to need this to be able to show proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Yes, you got your probable cause, and let's see where else is available. Is there evidence that's going to be there? I think that's the healthy dialogue back and forth. That's people don't understand that or see that, and the levels of checks and balance on these cases as soon as they're being charged. So if you don't mind, I'll hit that. So like inside this building, the courthouse, where our office is, we are not part of the judiciary. We're the only ones that are not. If you think back to Schoolhouse Rock, we are executive branch as a state's attorney. Everybody else is judicial that's in this building. The judges, the public defender, the circuit clerk, all fall under the judicial branch. So there's already that healthy competition, jets and sharks right there.
Yeah.
And we are a constitutional office, and we have to abide by that. So that's where we go and take, we're already at odds, but when we make an arrest, oftentimes it's with a warrant, sometimes it's without. If it's without, we've approved it as a state attorney's office. And prior to pretrial fairness, the felonies would come in automatically for a bond to be set. If it's a warrant, the bond amount would be on the warrant. And what a warrant does is you talk about probable cause for the charge. So at the warrant stage, you're not doing beyond reasonable doubt. You're doing it there. But the judge that's the officer who's making the arrest or who's worked on the case, and the state's attorney and the judge. Okay, judge says, yeah, there's probable cause to make this arrest. Please go arrest them. But then that comes in, and if it's on a felony, the judge reviews it again in court, finding probable cause after whatever evidence is presented. Then we often go to a grand jury here, different throughout the state. A grand jury or a preliminary hearing is done in every county out there, but some do just prelims, some do grand jury, some do both. We primarily do grand jury, which is minimum of 12 people come in. We usually have about 15 in our county. We meet every other week, and the cases are presented again. They're determining whether there's probable cause to proceed on the case. And then we go and you have the pretrial phase. That is where different motions are filed for motions to suppress evidence, motions to quash arrest, motion to suppress statement. That's in there. And then we get to the trial where it's back to us to, can we sustain beyond reasonable doubt? So checks, balances, abound, always have. There's a lot of things that are said about our system. It's our system, and you have to love and respect the system, even if there's things about the system, that you don't particularly like, but that's our system. So it goes back to, lead with love, serve with love, and make that what you do.
Yeah, and I appreciate that too. And just real quick, he did speak about, the back and forth. There have been times when Rick's office has come to us and said, hey, we have probable cause, but we need you to do a little bit more work. We need a little bit more to reach this burden. And then our guys have to go back at it and obtain this other information, whatever it might be, and we go back and forth with this all the time, which, like I said, that's when our relationship really comes into play, because some detectives feel like they've done everything they could do. And then now you have a state's attorney saying, hey, I need you to do a little bit more because I don't feel comfortable with us meeting this burden. And then we go back out there and we go at it again. And sometimes, if you look at the detective's face, I'm sure it's written all over his face, like, what the hell, but that's the job. And the respect that we have for his office, Lou, our guys go right back out there and do what's required because of the respect of the office. And, it's just that cohesive group, that respect that we have for each other makes it a lot easier to go back out there and do what's required for the state's attorney's office to meet their burden, and I think that's really important. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a really, really important point. I'm glad, Kirky brought it up and everybody's speaking to it, and Rick. So I guess Rick just put a finer point on it. A lot of times, or it happens, where our officers will have probable cause to make an arrest based on a state statute and what they've observed. And then, of course, when we submit our case to the state's attorney, you have that higher burden, right? Of course, we want to have these checks and balances you talk about. And so maybe a case, to Dave's point, won't be carried forward based on the information we currently have. I think a lot of people then think, and I know because I get calls that the system didn't work and that they were treated unfairly. They were arrested without any cause at all, and then maybe even contemplate lawsuits and things like that. But to your point, the system did work. There was probable cause for the officer at the time. They have a lower burden just to bring it into the system per se. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way I
Yeah.
kind of. And then, of course, your job, and then all of those different checks and balances are to make sure that, again, that beyond a reasonable doubt standard can be met. And if it can't, it maybe doesn't mean that the officer on the scene at that time didn't have the appropriate authority to do what they did. That was appropriate for the time. But again, the deeper dive, the additional look, now higher standard just means it may not be able to be brought, but it doesn't mean it's improper. I mean, does that summarize it? Is it my saying?
Absolutely. Right. And it's statutes are really something when you read them. You're like, wait a minute, I thought this was this, and like this is what we needed to show. We were working on some grooming cases here, and colloquially, grooming means one thing, but when you look at charging a charge of grooming, it's a whole different thing. And so you get caught in those positions, or like, hey, let's look at these statutes and break it down of what we need. Almost every time, and when I'm doing on call, and I'll take on call, or again, like any big cases, I'm called, and I'm no superhero. Like, it's just the job. It's what we do. It's how I've chosen to do the job. Not every state's attorney does it that way, but I'm always into the statute. So I'm like writing into my iPhone or cell phone, battery, ILCS, and I get the statute up. And I have to look at it almost every time, especially on charges we don't charge as much, or the more important or serious charges. So you have to look at the elements of the offense and make sure you got them. Sometimes you missed one. Like, oh yeah, something that's a little bit more complicated or unusual. Like, do we have this or do we have that? And read those statutes. And every time I'm on call, anytime I'm approving, even if it's a simple case, I'm looking at the statute just to make sure. And it's just that I'm on the phone with one, I have the other phone in front of me, and you match it up and talk.
Yeah, but so essentially, even and I've seen these cases happen. The officer is presented with a certain amount of facts, 2 a.m. They know the statute to the extent they know it, and they're like, yeah, there's enough here. It's 51%. I'm bringing you in.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, after the review, and if other elements aren't there, the case may not be taken forward. But that's really just proof the system's working. I mean, truly,
Correct.
because, I know they, of course, view it as, well, wait a minute, if the officer brought me in, they didn't have enough. Obviously, I didn't commit a crime. But it is that different standard. That's the whole crux of it.
Right. Being found not guilty doesn't mean you're innocent, right? Necessarily. It's like, we didn't meet our burden beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's something out there, maybe not a real popular concept, but in the courthouse or in the system that we work, it's just not guilty. And oftentimes the judge will couch their statements like, well, I believe there's probable cause here. However, to get beyond reasonable doubt, we just don't have it. And we'll cite the reasons. Sometimes they don't give us reasons. Sometimes they don't say anything. It's different judge, different day. But that's something that it happens. And I think the system does work because I think people, again, it's not one of those things that is made for TV interesting. These conversations of a very mundane charge, and you're just reading a statute and putting it together and make your charge. So people don't realize the amount from day 0 when the event just happened, how much work is being put in, how many resources are being expended to bring these charges or not bring them. And from our point of view, and I think it's different per person, trying to make sure we have an office that works well. I don't want some prima donna attorney saying no because your verb tense was off, therefore you don't have a charge here. Or, well, you needed to cross the T and dot that I, and then we'll give it to you. That's terrible. And so we try to raise our office from the officer on the street standpoint and make relevant comments that's going to be helpful. And I've seen people come in the job and just been that way, that are like making comments that don't help, or making suggestions don't help. But if we are saying, well, look, keep working on this, do X, Y, and Z, now we have a charge, that's what we're trying to do, and try to be reasonable with our approach at all times, not to put an officer on a goose chase, not to harm our defendant or our victim more. It's to, is it there or is it not, to make sure it's there.
Yeah, I dealt with that. Nothing against Cook County, because I worked with them my whole career. good state's attorneys, and and especially assistant state's attorneys. But I had the judicial override authority with state police as colonel. And some of my officers, they would call me and wake me up in the middle of the night and say, "Hey, we got a great case. They won't take it." And then, every now and then I would exercise that. I mean, I didn't do it often, but there were sometimes I'm like, yeah, I mean, this sounds like, a great case. You met your burden for probable cause, but then, like you said, Rick, sometimes you do have those state's attorneys who are nitpicking and and to each their own. Everyone handles it differently, but sometimes you have to make that override decision and at least get it into court, and then let us have this conversation another time. But at 3 a.m., you got a guy in custody, you got an ag UUW or whatever the case may be, and you met all the factors you need to meet. And then you have every now and then you'll have a state's attorney who'll say, well, I just need you to do this one extra thing. And it might not be something that's feasible, and then, hey, look, I've met my burden and you still won't give me probable cause for this. So, sometimes you have to do a judicial override, just to get it in the system, and then we can fight it out another time,
It makes me think of this. The case was a couple of years ago, but it was a carjacking situation happened in Chicago, Cook County, turned into a fleeing and eluding, ended up in Will County. And the arresting officer could have went Cook, could have went Will, and they went Will for the entire charge. That sometimes speaks of that.
Yeah, for sure.
What is it you're looking at? And again, here we're small, and it's harder to say no to a guy you're going to see 3 times a week, and you might see him at church, and you might see him at the supermarket, and you're going to see him out here or there. It's harder to say no because you have those relationships and you have that respect. So it's people who come from bigger jurisdictions to a smaller one, you're like, oh, you have these relationships with law enforcement you don't necessarily have in a big place.
Right.
That you see the guy once a month, once a year. You're going to work with these guys and girls every day of the week. So makes it a little bit different. Doesn't change the job. You got to get the probable cause, proof beyond reasonable doubt, proof beyond reasonable doubt. But it changes how you go about it.
All right, so point of clarification, a couple of minutes ago, Chief Dave Bird mentioned ag UUW. So what we do here, Rick, a lot of times in law enforcement, we use these acronyms and we just talk in jargon and people don't know what the heck we're talking about there. So Chief Bird, what is an
aggravated unlawful use of weapon? I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. We do it all the time. Everything we abbreviate. So we try to share with our folks what that is, because we just say it rolls off the tongue, CSO, PPO, all that stuff. Right. All right. So point of clarification. All right. So it's certainly. So I've got a question for you, Rick. Okay, so you're not getting rich from this. Apparently, you're losing years on your life because of all the work and overtime and stress, and you're dealing and seeing some pretty horrific things in your life. Why in the world did you get involved in this, and why do you think most state's attorneys do?
Great question. If you look back and years off your life, 2015, 2016, I didn't look Dave Bird good, but I looked better than I did here in 2024. It takes a huge toll, so you have to do it. And I've said it a few times. It's for the love of the community. Before I came in, this office particular was a wreck, and so from May of 2009 until I took office December 1st of 16, I was the 6th state's attorney in 7 years. Okay, so we had a state's attorney who was elected to a 3rd term who chose to get those. We take office in December. People lose track of anything, like everything's like the president, where it's January. So like you're elected in this year be 24. The new guy takes office December 2nd of 24. That's Monday. You start, we had a person elected and within a few months put their name in to become judge within that 3rd election. So you went through the election cycle, you're a few months into the new term, he leaves. So then it just took a spiral effect of instability that really eroded this office. So literally, I walk in the door, I'm the tallest midget, right? 6 states attorney in 7 years, but I saw, being that I was in the criminal defense side, being part of the community, this was a wreck. So that's what I saw going on. I'm like, look, we could build this back. I have a lot of friends in law enforcement. I come from a family that has law enforcement in it, so I've always had a huge respect for law enforcement. And I think really in DeKalb County, another shout out for our area is law enforcement is greatly respected out here. And for those you think of laterally, this is a public service message for you of you can come out here and you are well respected. Even socioeconomically, you are at or above the average, and you're treated well, and you're big parts of our community. So you're loved and respected. So come out. Now, seeing that and living that with the friends that I have, I hated how this office was. To me, it needed to be redone. It needed to be built back into a stable force that was good for law enforcement, good for the community, good for our victims. I grew up in eastern side of DuPage County, Addison, and I had, that DuPage has always been kind of a pillar of strength of stable state's attorneys, and so I had that model in my mind. Those folks that served there, the Jim Ryans, Joe Burkett's, now Bob Berlin, very much respected, very much stable driving forces that can be counted on when times are tough. And that's what I wanted to build here, and I think that's what we have. But we really had to really start from scratch, and it wasn't like I came in and the people that served here, they're all good people, but we wanted a look that was really to meet the needs of where law enforcement was at now, where the direction of the court system was going. And I think we've met that head on. Like, we've come in with all types of programs that are both supportive of our community, supportive of our victims, but supportive of the defendant, realizing they'll be back. So you have to do things to help them while keeping the respect of law enforcement and making sure justice is done on the cases that require that. So it's been that juggling act, but being able to put 8 years at it, we've been able to stabilize it, bring in the folks and the programs that make that work. And I think we're at a good place now. I hope it continues in the future. I hope we never repeat the past that we went through with 6 state's attorneys in 7 years. That's a nightmare for community. It's poor leadership for the community, and it's not supportive of law enforcement, and it's really not safe. So that's where we have to do. I'm not for term after term after term. To Kirk's point, I'm not state's attorney. I am a person, so I never want to be just the role. I want to be that guy who's got a name and a family and is part of the community, not just the singular role. And that's really part of it. So it was for the love of the community, for the position I saw this office in, and what I knew it could be and really had to be as we're moving forward. So.
Hey, Rick, you called me Kirk. I actually do go by Your Excellence. So
I'm sorry, I didn't get the return question. Sorry, Your Excellence.
I have a quick question. So you mentioned, you have about 20 state's attorneys in your office, 20 employees, I guess. 12 state's attorneys, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you have 102 counties, and you have Cook County, obviously, is the biggest, and you got like things like Massac County, way at the southern part of the state of Illinois. And obviously, there's a lot of counties that just maybe have one state's attorney, and they're trying every case. So with a size of your department, how often do you, as the state's attorney, try cases? Or is most of what you do administrative and then do stuff for the county? Tell us about that.
It's both. And I've done, I think, 5-6 jury trials since I've been here. There was going to be more. We had that small thing called COVID that really put a dent into moving cases along. I had 2 or 3 that I was tracking still to do now that have now gotten continued. I think strategically by the defense attorney, didn't want to face up with me or our office at this point in time. But it's very difficult to do both. You have to be here, present in the office to help your people. So it becomes more administrative. I'll often roll in the traffic court and help our folks in there. That's our major traffic call, move cases, get people out of here. People come taking off work. Let's get them in, get them out of here, send them home on a reasonable disposition. So I'll roll into there frequently, and you can move those cases just by looking at them and talking. When you have more complex cases, things are complex. You need to spend the time on them. So the assistants do their job. They'll come to me on the hard decisions, or what do I think is a reasonable disposition, almost on every case that's in those positions where it's more than a minor or typical sentence. So I found myself getting larger recently, and I realized it's because over the last couple of years, I've sat in my office and everybody's coming into me. I'm like, I got to get up and start walking, because this is like, you sit here and you feel it all. So it's become more administrative the more I've done it. everybody likes to be out there and trying cases. Those are fun. That's the exhilarating part of it. But to be able to do it right, you need to be here for the men and women working for you. So unfortunately, more time here at this little desk.
All right. Thank you, Your Excellence, for asking that question. I thought that was very nice. We do call him that. We call him a lot of other things too that he doesn't know, but we'll go with that here. All right. So as we're winding up, I mean, you have covered a lot of very interesting things, and you've kind of touched on both the ones I'm going to ask you. But as you're getting ready to kind of move into that next chapter, what is one thing you're most proud of, that you've accomplished for your organization or your organization has? And, what is one of the things that was maybe the biggest challenge that you faced, in your position? And you may have covered a little bit, but those are just two things I think people would be interested to hear as you're kind of walking out.
I'm proud of who we've become as an office. I think the people I've brought in and pouring into them and the people and professionals they've become are great. This is not a plug for any other 101 state attorney's offices out there to come take our people, but the men and women who work here can prosecute anywhere in the state, hands down. So I'm proud of them, and I'm proud of who we are and our relationships that we've built with each other, as well as our brothers and sisters in law enforcement. Biggest challenge, this has been one pivot after another, after another, after another. And it's not Ross moving the couch up the Friends episode of pivot, but like you get something and you got to move. The entire 8 years has been that way, and we've continued to redefine and adapt all the time, which it's fit my skill set. It's worked well. I don't necessarily think if I was here 25 years ago with who I am, it would have worked, because I'm more that blended guy of justice and fairness and not just harsh rule of law. Like, I do see it. And when I've done prosecutor, Your Excellence, and I'm up there and I'm looking at the defendant, that's one thing. And I think probably for all of us, you see the human, you see yourself in that other person. But for a different change of luck or a different night here or there, I'm not saying the bad things, but like a lot of them are like, man, that could have been me. So you need to make sure as you're adapting, you keep that person in mind, and it's all about people.
My last question for you is, HBO comes in, or a movie studio comes in, and they're going to make a movie about a case, and you are the prosecutor. Who is playing you in that role?
Oh, dude, you know what? We do that here in office, and I always give the assistants like really cool people. Like, I have one prosecutor. I'm like, oh, yeah, all right. It's McConaughey, right? And then we had a really strong female prosecutor, but it was kind of witty. I'm like, Elizabeth Banks. Me, I've never typecasted myself. I cannot be
Matt
cast at all.
Damon. I'm getting a Matt Damon vibe.
Matt Damon vibe?
Yeah.
I'm taller than Matt Damon. I'm about 6'2". But do not give me Ben Affleck. So
or Joe Pesci. I'm guessing that's not another one when he did the Utes. That's
probably 2 Utes. Yeah, I've hopefully have evolved my community. Grow up in Addison where everybody's Italian or ethnic of some sort. There is that type of potential language to come out. I've tried to evolve past that, though.
And do you watch shows about lawyers, or do you stay clear of them?
Absolutely cringe worthy, because it just stresses me out, because you start like, well, that doesn't happen, or I wouldn't do that. I'm like, they're way better than me. I can never do that. So like, it's just too much. It's too much. And at the end of the day, we watch a lot of mindless stuff of not law shows, but cop shows and gangsters. Like, who doesn't love good gangsters, right? And again, it's like at the heart of it, the turmoil gangster. And I'm Italian, Godfather.
Godfather, right? Yes, sir.
Everything I've learned in life, Godfather and the Rocky series, I think it has it all there.
Well, since you said the Godfather, I think a young De Niro could play you.
Ah, there you go. Well played. Nice.
Thank you, Chief. That's why I love you.
All right. Well, Rick, I got to thank you for being here today. And again, thank you for your service to the DeKalb greater area community. It's clear certainly why Dave's going to miss you and that area is going to miss you. I mean, you are passionate about what you're doing. You came in with a mission. It sounds like you accomplished that mission to the great degree that you did. and you certainly have contributed again to the greater public safety in that area. We wish you nothing but the best as you move on into your next endeavor, and are just, grateful that you spent a little time here with us and we're able to, share with the broader listening audience a lot of the information that we may know just from the people we know in the business, but we just don't think the public does. And so amazing, just how you were able to encapsulate that in 55 minutes and really hit all the high notes. So grateful to you for spending time with us today. Grateful to you for your service to your community. And again, we wish you nothing but the best, my friend. So thank you for everything.
Thank you all. Be well. Be well.
Thank
You're
you.
excellent. I'm going to stay out of O'Fallon. I'm just saying.
This has been another episode of Behind the Badge Illinois. You'll be able to catch them on our YouTube channel for the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, or WGN. And we'll do another one next week. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.